Welcome back to another episode of Pulse of Polynesia. I'm your host, Leaso Filoya Lee.
Boom, 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 earth shake, silent fever. Wave riders, lava rivers, no deceiver. Baseline thumping, sharp cuts like cleaver. Coconut shell.
Tonight, we're sitting down with a young man whose journey is proof that leadership knows no age or boundary. He's the two-term undergraduate student government president at the University of Chicago, one of the world's top universities, and a proud Chamorro Pacific Islander from Chandler, Arizona. He's also a brother of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, co-chair of the U Chicago Black Council, a stamped scholar, and a voice for representation, language access, and belonging. Beyond the titles, Elijah Jenkins is a storyteller. Through his poetry, his photography, and his everyday example of resilience, he represents what happens when intellect meets purpose. So tonight, we'll explore the story behind the accolades, the lessons from his upbringing, the challenges of leading in elite spaces, and the heart of a young Pacific Islander determined to make a global impact. To every student, dreamer, and leader listening, this podcast is for you. Because sometimes the future doesn't wait for permission. It starts with someone like Elijah choosing to rise. Welcome. Thank you so much for being able to take the time. And I know that in the university that you're currently at, there's so much to do. And I understand because with my kids in college, it's like, call me when you can. I know you guys are busy. And so we understand that, we had to reschedule just so that you're able to have that chance to be able to be on our podcast. So thank you so much for taking that time out.
Of course.
Let's start from the beginning. What was childhood like for you growing up?
Yeah, I think growing up in Arizona was really interesting because I didn't really grow up around a Pacific Islander community. My Pacific Islander community really just extended from my immediate family who was in Arizona. And so I grew up a lot with my Black community in Arizona. And so that's what really shaped my early on understanding of what it means to be an activist for your community. I grew up in spaces in which I was the only person who was often Pacific Islander, often Chamorro, often African American at the same time. And so always had to have this dual reality of being knowledgeable of who I was as a person and what separated me from others. And I think that's really what grounded me of wanting to understand my history, understand my Pacific Islander identity, and really shaped me to become a person who's very much an individual and seeking out opportunities to learn about my history, but also teach others about it. Because when you're constantly in spaces where you're not recognized, there's always a reason for you to speak up and show the world who you are, show your classroom about where you come from. And so that's what it really was like for me growing up in Chandler.
Of all the schools that you could attend, you attended an all-boys Catholic school.
Yes. It was an interesting experience, and I think that's like the moment in which I got a lot closer with my Pacific Islander identity, which seems really strange, but when I look back on it, it actually makes a lot more sense, simply because it was a Catholic school, and my mom's side of family growing up in Guam, they're all Catholics, and I wasn't raised Catholic because my father was a pastor and he was Christian, and so this is my first interaction with Catholicism, and I found myself talking to my nana a lot about Catholicism, which ultimately led to talking about her time on the island, which kind of left on a series of paths of learning more about my cultural identity. But it was really strange because I was the only guy, the only Pacific Islander, but it was also such a great community of values because the school was focusing on like, what does it mean to be loving? What does it mean to be compassionate? What does it mean to be committed to doing justice? And those are the ideals the school was centered on. And so although I was like in this rediscovery phase of who I was and such, I found myself getting a really good foundation of what does it look like to be a global citizen, or what does it look like to be an individual who's supporting others. So it was a really great experience. And I would say there's like one moment I remember in particular. It was in my AP United States history class. And it's always a period where we're learning about U.S. history, and when they get to World War II, they start talking about the Pacific all of a sudden, and they mention Guam. And that was my first time Guam ever being mentioned in the academic space, and no one in the classroom knew about it, and had to raise my hand and tell everyone all about Guam, and started word vomiting all about this island that no one ever heard of, and people were so confused that I was Pacific Islander. They thought I was just African American. And from like that moment forward, it was always about reclaiming spaces when possible to be proud of my island, proud of my people, and proud of the Pacific, in places where I was supposed to be there. So
wow, that's very interesting, especially being raised in America and then finding out about you learning about your culture through your family, and then in school in these small spaces. Which I'm going to ask you a question about how you were able to get one of the language incorporated to your college. So we'll get to that later. But the fact that it made you feel so proud inside that they were talking about your country, Guam, which is a U.S. territory, I believe, like Samoa.
correct.
So you mentioned that your mom is Chamorro, right? And I know
Yes.
that's the word that's used a lot in America's Chamorro. Is that what you use as well? If anybody were to ask you what's your ethnic background, do you use Guamanian or Chamorro, and why?
So I say Chamorro, just because Chamorro is the idea of reclaiming our indigenous identity. Early on, like U.S. policy on the census, they would classify us as Guamanian. A Guamanian was a word to codify our indigenous identity and who we were as indigenous Pacific Islanders from Guahan, from the Marianas. So I say I'm Chamorro. I don't identify as Guamanian. My mom is Guamanian, though, simply because she grew up on the island. So if I would have grown up on Guam, I'd be Guamanian in Chamorro. But since I did not grow up in Guam, I just claim to be Chamorro. And there's actually something really interesting about this, because I know we might talk about it later, but since we're on the topic of it right now, when I was working at the State Department, I was working at the State Department in the Office of Australia, New Zealand, and Pacific Islands. I was the only Pacific Islander in this office focusing on Pacific policy, and we had a conversation with our colleagues in American Samoa, Guam, and CNMI, and the director, who's like a high-level official in the State Department, he introduced me to everyone, says, "This is our intern, he's Guamanian, yada, yada, yada." And I had to like speak up and say, I'm not Guamanian, I'm Chamorro, because I do believe there's a distinct difference of growing up on the island versus just being from the island, having that cultural tie to Guahan. And so I identify as Chamorro, but I don't identify as a Guamanian.
That's good to know, because I don't think a lot of people know the distinguish between Chamorro versus Guamanian, right? And so that is a very good distinguish, so that those in our listeners can understand, so that when they do ask, that this is the reason why. Your mom is like me. I grew up and was raised in Samoa, and your mom grew up and raised in Guam. What are some of the cultural things that she brought to raising her family that you've learned?
So I think it's very interesting for my mom, because when she attended school in Guam, during this time, they weren't really educating Chamorros online of their history. And so for my mom, when she was raising us, she didn't really know much of Chamorro history or Guam's history, but she just knew the cultural aspects. So like food was like always a very focal point of our community. So chicken calaguin, barbecue, desserts and such. And it's the way to respect your elders and greet them was something always central to Pacific Islander identity, but specifically our family, of respecting your elders. And I think that's what really grounded me in appreciating community, and respecting my grandmother, my elders, and uncles I meet. And so that's what she really raised my siblings on us on, like grounding us in the importance of our family, and what does that mean to have a family, but also acknowledge that you owe respect to your grandma, your grandpa, and you should be listening to them, which I think a lot of values are being lost in communities in the U.S. of respecting your elders who are even outside your family. Just because they're not blood related to you does not mean you don't owe them a sign of respect. But that's something that's like really grounded the way my mother raised me.
How many siblings do you have, if you don't mind me asking?
So I have 5 siblings.
Are you the only one that chose to go to Chicago for school?
So actually, my little sister is here at the University of Chicago right now. So she decided to come here, and which has been really amazing to go on like this whole journey of reconnecting with our Pacific heritage, because she's been able to join it with me and do it together. And so now there's 2 Chamorros at the University of Chicago right now, myself and my little sister.
Has there ever been a time where you decided, where you ever felt like, you miss home, you want to go back home, this is not what you're used to, this is different from the lifestyle that you're upbringing?
I think, although I'm like physically farther away from my family, I think in some ways I feel more home here, which is kind of strange. I think me and my family have a really good relationship for me calling and stuff, and so seeing them physically is not really the problem, although I love to see them as much as I can. But I feel like there's such a stronger sense of community in Chicago itself and of culture, which you don't really have in Arizona. And so I've been able to find that here. And plus, there's a whole body of water, and so I like to pretend like it's my ocean, versus in Arizona, there is no water. And so in many ways, I feel like I'm actually closer to Guam itself, even though I'm like right next to a lake. But I feel really, really at home in Chicago, which has been a really great experience, except when it's winter and there's blizzards. Those are the moments in which I want to be back home in Arizona.
Yes, I totally understand. A lot of people always ask me, like, how did you get from the islands to, because I lived in Alaska before I moved to Texas. Like, how did you get from the islands to Alaska to Texas? And I'm like, just adapting and getting used to the environment and finding ways to be productive wherever you are. Have you been to Alaska?
I want to go, but I hear it's really, really expensive. So maybe once I get a job.
It is. It's expensive, but it's beautiful and it's worth the visit. So I tell people, don't do the cruise. Best thing to do is just fly to Anchorage, get an RV, and just drive from Anchorage to the other side of Fairbanks and just enjoy. Just go in July because it's 24-hour daylight. So July. You could just stay up. Well, yeah, 24-hour daylight. But anyways, that's Alaska's beautiful. It's worth going to visit. But I want to ask you, going back to your questions, you mentioned Chamorro heritage, and I know you have brought this up before. What does being Chamorro mean to you personally? And I know you had talked about the distinguish between Chamorro and also being called a Guamanian. But do you feel like you'll be able to be in Guam and learning the culture so that you could have that distinguish, or be able to be called Guamanian, or do you just be considered, as a diaspora because you're in America, you grew up in America? How does that feel to you? What does that mean?
I feel like I feel really proud to be Chamorro. Like, I have the Guam seal necklace underneath my shirt. I have a Guam seal tattoo. So it's not that like I'm not proud of Guam. It's just that I think there is a sense of being understanding that growing up on the island, there's different experiences than being away. And something central about being Chamorro is asking for permission and understanding. Although I'm from this island, I have still to ask for permission from those who are currently living there to make changes or to enter spaces that I wasn't really fully growing up with. And so that's something I had to be conscious of when I went back to the island and visit my family this past summer. And it was visiting shout out Totu, which is the village my family is from. But I feel really proud of be Chamorro because when we think of the Pacific, there's 3 ways of migration going to the Pacific. Chamorros were the very first to enter the Pacific in the Marianas around 3,500 years ago. And so there's a deep history of us being there in the Pacific. So that really makes me proud to understand my ancestors have been there for over 3,500 years. But it's also, I'm proud because although we were the very first islands in the Pacific to be colonized by the Spanish, we're one of the last islands to still be colonized. We're still alive. We're still speaking our language. We're still breathing our culture. And that's really powerful to be consciously aware of. Knowing that. And so I walk on this road really proud to be Chamorro, really proud to have lineage to Guam. But I don't say I'm Guamanian because I know that being Guamanian means that I was born there, I grew up there, and that really shapes the way you perceive the world. And and my perspective is shaped differently because I was part of the diaspora.
You described that very well. Thank you so much for explaining. My kids, when they talk about their culture, they feel the same way too, because they weren't born or raised there, except for one. But he still, I don't know what's wrong with him. He's like, I don't like seafood at all, Mom. It's like, you were born in Samoa. I don't understand.
You don't like fish?
Yeah, he's like, anything fish, he does not like, nothing. He's like, no seafood. I was like, okay, son, I don't know. Maybe you got switched at birth. I don't understand. But you look like me. So, do you remember your first aha moment when you realized you could use your voice to help others?
I'm going to take this a two-part question, because I feel like there's a different moment in which I felt I could use my voice to help others, but also a moment in which I felt I could help my Pacific community. So I guess like the first moment in which I realized I could help others was back in high school. In high school, it was a Catholic all-boys school. They had a dress code policy in which students couldn't have braids. That wasn't allowed at the school. And so I joined the school's Black Student Union and got really involved there. Drafted this whole letter, got signatories, and brought it to administration, petitioning them to allow students of color specifically to wear braids, wear locks, wear cultural hairstyles, because to me, culture is like the most important thing a person can have, and not being able to express your culture, I believe, is a real big harm to the individual emotionally, but spiritually as well. And so was able to petition that, and the school administration changed it, and so now 3-4 years now, like there's been students coming to the school who are able to wear their hairstyles and not even know that, like, at one point we were not allowed to wear our hairstyles on that school. And so that was the moment I realized I feel I can make a tangible change, but I didn't feel like I could make an impact in the Pacific until college, because like over 3,000 miles away, how in the world am I going to make a change in Guam? Like, that doesn't make any sense in my mind. But when I went to Chicago after my freshman year, like, that's kind of like the moment in which I realized, like, I want to be able to do work in the Pacific. And so I almost transferred out of my university because there wasn't many options to take any Pacific classes. There wasn't any Pacific scholars. I finally have a Pacific scholars, Professor Mali, who's Kanaka Mali, who's my thesis advisor right now. But at that moment of time, there was no one at the university who was doing that. So I was getting ready to transfer. I was working at the law school over the summer, and there was a book outside of a professor's office that said Colonial Diseases in Guam by Professor Ann Hattori, if anyone who's aware of Chamorro scholarship, like, she's like at the forefront of like colonial history of Guam. I saw that book. I emailed the professor. It's like, hi, my name is Elijah Jenkins. I'm a Chamorro student at the university. I saw you had this book here. Why are you reading this book? She emailed me back. We had a coffee chat, and I found out they were working on a case in Guam on U.S. militarization and the effect on the Serranos, which Serrano Chamorro is also known as Zoamte, which are our spiritual healers on island who use medicinal herbs to take care of the community. And so there has been active militarization on the island, preventing our Zoamte from accessing the lands to use those medicinal herbs. And the law school just happened to be working with Blue Ocean Law, which is a law group in Guam, headed by Julian Agan, who's a really big, profound Chamorro scholar and lawyer. They just happened to be working on that case, and I had the great opportunity my sophomore year to actually work on the report with them. And I was watching interviews of Serranos, writing down, incorporating history into the report, and was actually having an impact on my island. And so that's where I realized, like, it doesn't matter your distance. It doesn't matter if you're a Pacific Island diaspora. If you find modes of power, you can make change for your community back home. And that's what really set the trajectory of my whole journey of doing work in the Pacific today.
And that's what led me to you, especially when I saw that video that you had posted about the deep sea mining. Now, it's like, why do they care so much when they don't live in the islands, right? But at the same time, don't understand what it impacts, not just you, but it impacts everyone and our future generation. So tell us about that, Elijah.
Yeah, so I guess like the whole TikTok thing, I really just started just like creating videos on like public service opportunities, because my goal was like, how can I get more young students into positions of government or nonprofits, spaces that can make impact, whatever their community was. But my junior year, I was working for this organization called Right to Democracy, which focuses on like U.S. territorial work, who happened to be like one of the people doing the signatories for the deep sea bed mining. But while I was in Palau, I started making more content on like Pacific issues and such, and I started amassing like this big following of Pacific Islanders in Palau because I was there, Guam, Polynesia, all across the Pacific.
Yep.
And so I realized like there's people actually watching my videos, and we need 2,000 signatures for this petition, and we don't have 2,000 signatures. So I was like, late at night, let me just create this video and see what happens. Create the video, 5 minutes, and it reached over 100K views of people just signing signatories, saying like, thank you for speaking up about this issue. Thank you for speaking up about this issue. It was really amazing to see not only like the fact that so many Pacific Islanders cared about this issue, but its ability to impact so many Pacific Islanders in the diaspora who, one, were not aware of the issue, but two, didn't know how they can get involved and make an impact. And that was the beautiful aspect, because there are so many people saying, oh my gosh, my home is American Samoa. My family's from there. Family's from American Samoa. And they were able to do something, give themselves agency to make impact in American Samoa in the way they could do. So, and so it really just shows like the internet is really powerful now in connecting us across the world. And in some way, it feels like our ocean connecting us all, but through TikTok.
I like that. I love that. Elijah, see, this is why I love that you're on here. To say that the internet is more like our ocean. Because it's true, right? Especially with the diaspora, with so many of our people and those who have not been to the islands that are from the Pacific. But like what you said, they don't know how to help. They're proud to be who they are, but they don't know what's going on, and then they find out because they hear it through social media. And I love what you just said. This is more like our ocean. And so we need to be able to utilize this platform the best way we can, and being able to do that, just like what you did, Elijah. That is, sure, for president. I am not joking. We need that, Elijah. So thank you for sharing that. All right. So Elijah, if your younger self could see you today, what do you think he'd say?
I think he would say, you made it, because as a kid, I always dreamed about going back to Guam, ever since like hearing the stories from my mom, seeing the stories from my grandma, my mom, uncle, my elders about the island. But like, it's so expensive. It costs over $2,000 just to get a flight to Guam, to get to anywhere in the Pacific. And like, that's a really big barrier for many of us in diaspora to connect with our family. But like going to university, my first goal, once I realized the passion, was like, how in the world can I get to Guam, take my family, and go for free? And so that's what the Stamp Scholar is for, because I applied my sophomore year with the professor I was doing work with in Guam, and got funding to utilize to be able to travel places. And I was able to use all that funding to go to Guam, bring my family, bring my sister, and meet so much of my family that I've never met before, but who've been... The funny thing is, I was meeting my cousins, and they didn't realize the TikTok video they saw of the deep sea bed mining was their cousin. And so I showed up to our party, and like, oh my gosh, you're my cousin. So like, that was such a truly profound moment to see that my own family is watching their videos, saying like, oh, who is this Chamorro speaking up for the Pacific, and like not realizing I'm their second cousin from the same village. So that was a beautiful moment. So I think the kid would say like, you made it, Elijah, and keep on going.
I have to ask you, because I know that I know a lot of people that went back home. They come back and then they tell stories about, wow, this is they tell a lot of sad stories about, wow, things have changed. It's not how it used to be. You know, there's some things that could have done better. When you were back home, did you feel like there could have been a lot of improvement?
I think that's a good question, because I did feel like there was definitely fantasy idea of what I thought the island was going to be like, but there's also the reality in which I visited, and something I was like consciously aware of, like the military, how expansive it was on the island and its build up, but I didn't realize how present it was within my own family. Like when I went to visit, like every other day I was going to the base to either get gas, get groceries, just because it was more affordable there. My family they served, so they had access to the military bases. So it was a strange experience of like, me, like Barry, I don't believe in this whole military complex on our island, but we still need access to it. And so that was a reality I was struggling with. The other thing I didn't really expect was how big my family was, and how many generations. Because my great grandmother, she had, I believe, 16 kids, plus or minus two. And so there's multiple there's multiple branches of the Hernandez family there, and I didn't realize how many there were. But I think leaving, it didn't really. I feel like some people who go visit back and they come back, to like, I would never want to go back there. I don't think of how I would ever live there. But I think there's such a strong sense of community values, that's not really present here in the United States, and it's something that's being even more divided across the United States as our political climate has become more about division. That's something Guam has. And I went to a town hall there, and one of the ladies who was at the town hall was saying is that although she's in Guam right now and the cost might be more expensive, she's just happy that that the U.S. is having the mainland has not landed there. And I think that's something really special, to really have like a sense of community all across the island, and be there in that.
Do you know what I learned? Have you heard the story about the spam?
I don't know what exact story about the spam. I love spam, but
yeah, I just learned that, and I didn't know, but I was just learning that with my daughters, that during the time when the U.S. military took over Guam, so I think American Samoa period are the few islands that was able to save their lands. Mm-hmm. So that, it wasn't, they weren't able to take our land away from us. But then for Guam, America, the U.S. Was able to take the land away from the people. And when they did that, they were stuck with, because Guam, people in Guam were, their resources were fishing, and they lived off the land, but they took the land away from them. Now the U.S. was trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to feed all these people?
They give them spam.
That's where spam came in. Yeah. And so they were talking, like, I was watching a documentary about how they were saying something down the line where people now don't realize when they say spam to those who have been through that during that time, and I'm sure this is probably during the mid 1900s. You're talking about trauma when they talk about spam, and so years later, it's like people forget about that. They don't realize the story behind that.
Yeah,
so and that's pretty sad.
Yeah, and I think something deeper into that is something I even experienced when I was working in Palau, is that I'm not for sure how similar it is in American Samoa, but a lot of our dishes today are like infused with these products like spam and imported products, to the point where many like younger generations think that's like our traditional food, like that's what our ancestors ate, and it's not at all. And it's really bad for our diet. It's not conducive to developing children, but it's so accustomed to the culture now, the contemporary culture, that it's kind of traumatic to like remove it out of there. Like to say, I don't need spam, we're not using spam. That's like a cultural like trauma to detach that now.
No, I totally agree, and that comes a lot with it ruined our diet. And then on top of that, you have the nuclear bomb testing that went close to the Marshallese Islands, around that area in Guam. And that affected, like for 12 years, and that affected the resources in the area that's close to that proximity. And so when I learned about that, I was like, this is, Guam, just like the Marshallese Island, cancer rate went up, and the diabetes went up. But before, our people used to be very fit. I mean, to the point, and American Samoa was the same way. Samoa period was the same, where, like, I look at my great-grandparents and my grandparents' pictures back in the day, and they were fit. They had a six-pack, and we're not talking about the rock, stiff, steroid type of build. No, they were, like, just agile and fit and just healthy. And it's just different right now. And I just feel like a lot of things, I wish that in the future, these things could be done away with. And I wish that the next generation, like I'm telling my kids, spam is not our culture, and that we need to be able to let the next future generation know that this needs to be away from our culture. We need to get back to how it used to be for our people, because I feel like the food that we have now is our people are just too big and not fitting in the plane and not fitting in a lot of rides. I mean, we're tall, but we're not. It's crazy. Anyways, sorry, I got sidetracked. I was just thinking about
No,
spam.
you're
I was
good.
like, oh, wait a minute. But Elijah, I want to go back to our discussion, and it's beautiful to hear that you were able to go back home and utilize the resources that you're able to have. When you want something to work, you go around it and you find ways to make it happen. You find ways to make it work to where you're able to take your family to go back home. And the blessings of you being able to meet all your families and your second cousins who had no idea that was you on the video. Oh my gosh, that is crazy. That is a blessing. Elijah, what is driving you? What makes Elijah, the go-getter?
I think this really just goes back to how important, I would say, honestly, my father really raised me to understanding my history. Although my father is African American, he's not Chamorro. Like, when he was telling me about history of African Americans, he was also telling me history of the Chamorro people, and educating my mom and educating my nana on their own history. And when you realize that history, when you hear the history of the Chamorro people, for the 1500s to now, we have faced so many atrocities. My great grandmother was, I believe, one of the only ones to survive from the Japanese occupation. Out of all her siblings, because that's how brutal it was. And so when you grow up as a kid and your father's telling you this at 7 years old, that like you are lucky to be here, the only way to like live life is to pay homage to my ancestors, to ensure that I'm continuing a path that they would want to be on and walk on. And so I have lived my life not only to like give a respect to my ancestors, but to ensure that the next generation can continue to have the privileges that I've been afforded today, have access to schools, have access to the ability to travel home, because others don't. And so I think like that's really been my drive. When I wake up in the morning at 6 a.m., I have a reminder on my phone that says, "For the ancestors." So every morning I see that quote, and that like inspires me to say, like, if my ancestors on my mother's side, my ancestors on my father's side could survive so many barriers for me to be here today, like there's truly nothing I can't do. It's truly, there's no barrier that can stop me. And I think that's really the spirit that's allowed me the Elijah I am today, because I'm not afraid of anything, because my ancestors were not afraid and survived for me to be here to speak with you right now. So honestly, there's just something about you that I feel like the future is going to be so much brighter, and I cannot wait. Elijah. So keep doing what you do. The words that come out of your mouth are just very sharp and powerful, and that's exactly what we need, especially with this generation. And so thank you so much for sharing that. So now I want to move on to the next segment, the University of Chicago. I saw your video on YouTube, and it was how you were able to get into Chicago. You're probably like, oh no, not that video. So long ago.
So tell us about that. Yeah, that was like, what? That was like years ago, right?
Yeah,
so, like was 3 years ago?
3 years ago, yeah, I made a video.
That was a good video.
Thank you. Yeah, I made a video. It's like, oh, this is how I got into Chicago. Like, I want to tell the world on how you can possibly get into Chicago too. Because like, even at that age, I knew like I just want to be able to share resources. Because one thing about like getting access to institutions, but if you don't like give the ladder back, then what's the purpose of being there and taking up that space? And so that's why I created the video, and I started doing some more YouTube videos, just trying to like share to other people that there are people who look like me at this school, and you should be interested in going there. I got busy after a while, so I stopped on YouTube and went to TikTok. It was easier. But that's what like the initial video was for, and I think that's like really got me into the whole using TikTok, social media to like share information and resources. Because I would find students like even now who come to the university and be like, I saw you on YouTube, like that's so cool. I'm meeting you in person, like, and then seeing that impact on them to actually be here now, it shows that you can do one little thing and have an impact on so many people that you have never even met. So that's why I tell everyone, like, if you have an idea and you feel like it can affect someone, like just put it out in the world. Don't care what people think, because the people who it matters, it will matter to them, and that should matter more than anything.
Do you feel like your generation has become more sensitive to the backlash and to the negatives around them?
I definitely think so, because like since everything is so online, it's really easy to be like put out there and blasted in harmful ways. I think my sophomore year, there's an app on campus called Side Chat, which is like anonymous thing where people can like say things about you. Really, really bad, because it can like create a lot of problems. But my sophomore year, when I was running for vice president of student government, someone who did not support me made a comment about me on the app and had my name and everything. And I remember like felt like during the whole election period, I felt that people were watching me, they were looking at me, and felt some type of way. I felt very self-conscious of myself. But you gotta remind yourself, whenever you're going after opportunities that put you in the limelight, that put you in places to make change, there's gonna be more people who are also gonna be not supporting you. But once you get over that hurdle of like self-confidence and really like you don't care what others think, like that's really what I believe, when individuals can like accomplish anything and really just take their intellect to the world and make an impact.
Especially with, we're talking to your age level, and I want to be able to let them know from your perspective, how were you able to get through that hurdle? Because a lot of them are not able to get past that. And like what you said, social media, it comes in different direction where you least expect it. And so did you have that support to get you past all of that negativity while you were going through, and like what you said, when you're in a platform where, or in that space where you're trying to make moves, to you start to attract the good, the bad, the ugly. And so with that, how were you able to navigate past all of it? Did you have that support?
Yeah, I'd say it's like two things. Like one would be like my very close friends. They're always hyping me up, like, don't worry about the Elijah, like they're just saying stuff, like ignore that. And of course, like it's still gonna be in your back of your mind, but having some people that like actually talk to you and tell you that like you're not crazy is really helpful. So I say like it's one. The second thing is like use that negative into like energy that you can utilize to push yourself forward. Because I kept telling myself, they may hate, but once I'm elected, they can't hate anymore, you know? And so that was like the drive for me to keep on pushing, campaigning, and then eventually getting elected now twice, which hasn't happened in 10 years. And so like once that happens, the haters are really meaningless. But I think the third thing that I feel like my generation is doing better with, that I hope more do, is like if you feel like you have those moments of periods in which you're like doubting yourself and you don't know how to get out with that, like speak to therapists, like go to university, access those mental resources. Because specifically with the Pacific Islander community and the Black community, like we don't do therapists at all. It's very like out of this world, but I truly believe there's a true benefit to just having someone to talk to about issues outside of your family that can give you like a rational approach to say like you're not crazy, like these are the things you're have in your head that are not correct, and give you a path to escape out of that. But I would really say that starting off with like around a group of friends really was what allowed me to get pushed through any negativity.
That is exactly right. Being able to surround yourself with positivity, and that's a group of people that will give you that reinforcement. Also, I wanted to ask you too. Again, I'm going to circle back to coming from a all-boys Catholic school and then going to college where you decided to run for president. What was going on in your mind? What pushed you?
I don't know what was going on in my mind, because so like freshman year is like when I got involved with student government because I saw there was a need. This like goes to the language thing. You know, I had a lot of people in my community, specifically the Nigerian community on campus, who were like, I want to take African languages at this university. How can this be a top university in the world and there's no languages for our language, and we're one of the biggest Black demographics on this campus? Because other of our peer institutions, they have the language. And as someone who like struggles speaking Chamorro, my indigenous language, and wanting to learn it deeper, I was like, how would I not want to help them get the language that they want to have? And so like that's what really inspired me to get involved with student government. And once I saw that impact made and saw the community rally behind me, support me for campaigning and get it installed at the university, by the time when I ran for student government for the student body president, it really wasn't like a choice. It was just like, oh yeah, I'm the right person for this job. Like no one else is doing the things I'm doing on campus better than me. And I truly believe that I can have the biggest impact for my university in this manner. And so I don't think it was an aha moment. It was more of like, okay, the time has come now. I have to do it. I think the moment in which was like I realized how to do it again was like that was the hard part because honestly I wanted to be one and done because it was such an exhausting year. But out of the other people running, I was like, I don't think there's anyone who can actually, at least while I'm on campus, run it efficiently. For me to be like, okay, I'm a step away. So that's why I ran again this last year. And now continue to do it for this next year.
Wait. You just said for the second time it was harder than the first time.
Yeah, because like the first time you're like excited, you know, like I'm gonna be student body president. You're trying to prove something. The second time is like you have nothing to prove. Like you've already made your impact on campus. Like Elijah, you can take a break for your senior year and do nothing. But then the question was like, why would I do that? There's still a time for me to make impacts and changes on my campus. There's clearly still a need within my student government of this leadership because I'm still trying to train them to be in a position someone take over for next year and run. And so really, if I were just like staying there and doing nothing this year, I wouldn't be, one, I wouldn't be doing anything on campus, but two, I feel like it's a waste of my talents and waste of my youth at the school. And plus, it's like only one more year in the long span of times of my life. Like really, like 1 year, Elijah, is not going to make that big of a difference on your how busy you are. So really just like sit down, ground, and like accomplish all the things you want to do, and then ensure that the next generation can carry it on, because that's the importance of work. Like it's not just about what you can do, it's about how can you make sure the next people can continue on that work and make more impact.
Now I got to ask you had mentioned about being able to implement a new language class into the college. Was it last year you were able to go on a trip with your peers to, I think, Rwanda?
Yeah.
How was that? How was that experience?
So I've been able to travel pretty much everywhere at my university, which has been a great experience. I've been to Rwanda, Switzerland. I got an opportunity to be a delegate to COP29, which is a conference of parties of the United Nations that focus on climate change. This year's in Brazil, and hopefully the year after that, it'll be in Australia. But all these experiences have really been continued pushing my work of like international affairs and policy. And I really think the Rwanda trip was like really about focus on global health and understanding what that means for Pacific Islanders in health, which is like really, really vital for our community and that needs to be improved, as we were talking about earlier in regards to like diabetes and such. But when I went to COP, that was even a cooler moment because I was meeting with other people across the Pacific from other small island developing states who are doing work and climate stuff. I was actually on the plane with a guy who was a delegate from Samoa. So that was cool to chat with him. And you're just meeting with all these people, and especially youth, and connecting there on who are actually doing tangible things back home in their own community. And so it was a really great way to, one, feel like I'm not in this alone, like there's other people doing this work, and figure out like what are the next steps in my professional career to continue on this work and make these opportunities possible in my future. So like I'm truly privileged to go to this university because they've been able to provide these opportunities for no cost. And so that's why like I really understand like how fortunate I'm in this position and the importance of making sure other people like me can be in this position as well.
With your little sister there now, it's she's probably so, well, I shouldn't say she's actually very proud of you. Is she following the same footstep as well?
So slightly different. She's studying like economics and doing some climate work. Okay. She was actually in China this past summer, which is really awesome. And one of her internship project was to like talk about climate and environmental issues and create a research project that present to the company. And she decided to do it on Guam. So like that was like a really cool moment to see her incorporating her Pacific Islander identity and putting it into the limelight. And so she's going to like a different slightly path, like focusing more on the finance side, but she still has like a strong care for the community and figuring out ways to incorporate that any way she can.
That is amazing, especially being able to utilizing the resources to venture out instead of just textbook, because I know a lot of people don't get to have the hands-on experience. Speaking of hands-on experience and being able to touch ground on the soil of the places that you visit, I know you haven't mentioned this before, but I'd like to touch base on that. How can students who are in college that, especially those coming from the Pacific Island that don't know how to speak or say the right words to ask for these resources, so how can they, when they come here to America, be able to do the same thing to travel and utilize these resources to do their research as well and study?
Yeah, I think it's like twofold. First, I think like many people when they come to new spaces, they don't feel comfortable seeking out for help or asking questions on where to find opportunities. And so for me, I like kind of came in like ready to do that. And so like I feel like the biggest piece of advice is like reach out to upperclassmen who've you found online at the university who've already done it and ask them what did they do so you know how to obtain that. And like that's kind of like what I did. So I met all the upperclassmen who were doing cool things my freshman year. And so by the time it took time for me to apply for these opportunities, I already had them all my notes ready for me to apply. Because I feel like when I was in high school, I missed out on a lot of things because I wasn't aware of it. Because I didn't have anyone who was like supporting me and looking up to me provide that. But at University of Chicago, I immediately reached out to mentors. I was able to get those opportunities to figure that out. And I feel like most people at universities are inclined to help others, especially like upperclassmen. And if you have similar backgrounds on them, like they want to help you. So like once, like just really just get over that hurdle and seeking out for help. The second thing, Google is such a powerful resource. Like if you just search up programs for Pacific Islanders funded, like you'll find so many things. Like there's funding in the Asian Pacific Islander Caucus if you want to go work in Congress in DC over the summer that they'll pay for. If you want to go to University of Hawaii Manoa for grad school, there's a program there at the East West Center we can apply for. So like there's so many things.
Wow.
You just have to like search up online and find it. And that's like really the first step. And now like TikTok, like I've been putting stuff out there. Other Pacific Islanders have been putting stuff out there. So if you just go on TikTok and search, you can find stuff. But it really just takes that self-initiative to go out there and seek the opportunities for you to actually grasp it.
So anybody that needs more information on Elijah, can they look you up on TikTok under Elijah Jenkins?
Yeah.
Okay, so there you go. You can look up Elijah on TikTok, and he's under Elijah Jenkins. I want to circle back to you being the president. What message did that send to you that you have been elected twice now? What message did that send to you about trust and responsibility?
Okay, I'll take it separate. So like trust, I think it was like the importance of like being transparent of what you're doing, because when you're such a high position like that, many people on campus are not very unsure on like how you're impacting them. And so I was like being very transparent. I do quarterly reports every quarter of like everything we're doing, making sure I'm actively attending organization meetings, responding to emails when people reach out for help. And I feel like that's the best way to get trust from your community. On the responsibility aspect, that's like took me a while to really fully grasp on like how much responsibility I had, because there's so many things happening. Like if I mess up at one point, I can impact hundreds of clubs of not getting funding. And so when it comes to responsibility, you also have to understand the importance of sacrifice, understanding that in order for you to be in this position, you're going to have to sacrifice other things outside of this position in order for you to be fully equipped in the role and efficient. And so that's what like junior year was really like sacrificing a lot of things. My friends got really, really mad because they say, Elijah, you're always so busy, you're always so busy, you're always so busy. But the truth of the matter is that if you actually want to be a good president, if you actually want to be someone who's actually truly impacting the community, you have to be somewhat busy. This year it's a little bit easier now because like I understand what things I actually don't need to do versus I can. But in the very beginning, like how I had to measure both my responsibility and also trust.
And being able to do that and sacrificing time and your own personal time, that can also take a toll on your mental, but it's the afterwards that's rewarding. What has been the hardest part of leading, and how did you overcome it?
I think delegating. I'm a person who likes to try to do everything by myself. And in the beginning, like that's okay, but like over time that takes like a huge toll on you. And so for me it was like really understanding how to delegate. And I feel like delegating at times takes more work because you have to understand everyone's skill set, what they're able to accomplish, formalizing a package for them to understand to actually accomplish this task, and then make sure the thing is done. But that's important for leaders. You have to be able to delegate so everyone on the team gets exposure and learns the issues. Because if as soon as I graduate, these other people don't know, then there's no point. So like that's like the biggest obstacle for me to understand is like how can be not only a good leader but also a leader who delegates with their team and ensures that all the members are getting the training needed to be efficient in their jobs.
Yeah, you wish that you could duplicate yourself, but that's really hard. It's a part of life and working with others is being able to delegate because that allows you the time to work on other things. I've learned from other people that we had on the podcast, especially me. Being a mother of 6, I try to do 100% focus for each child, but I learned that I will never be able to give 100%, and so I try to balance out, and that's the part where it's hard. But at least being able to have a mental part of a sanity where I don't go crazy because I exhausted myself to no limits. But Elijah, again, good job in what you're doing. I want to move on to the next segment, and I want to talk about the Phi Alpha. If I'm saying it wrong, please let me know.
You're good. You're good.
How has Brotherhood influenced your sense of purpose?
I think it's been like a really big factor in the way I engage with others, because I think one thing, especially as like being a guy, that guys struggle with is like how to be vulnerable when you're like times of struggle, and that's something like our society doesn't really like recognize. That like we as young black men, young men in general in the world like need people to talk to, but like in that joining my fraternity really gave me that, so I can speak to them about anything and be vulnerable about them, and they've been able to support me for my lows and my highs. And when I was like working in Palau, I had brothers who were sending me money to support me and doing work there. It's like that's like what Brotherhood like has really given me, and it's been a really good experience.
So you've also served as Black Council co-chair, building unity across communities. What does true coalition leadership looks like to you?
Yeah, so the whole role of this organization, the Chicago Black Council, is really about how can we intersect communities outside of the university to utilize resources from within. So like as we were talking about earlier, like how can we give minority communities access to institutions of power to make change? And so that's what that work does. Like we connect with nonprofits, churches, directly with clubs, students, give them internship opportunities and figure out ways in which we can utilize our privileges as students at the university to impact the community we're part of. And I think that really goes back tied to like my Pacific Islander identity of like understanding like what land you're on, like who's the community you're belonging, and like knowing that like the idea of reciprocity, like although I'm here in an institution taking up space, what can I give back? In Chamorro we call that inafamalik, how to reciprocity, creating good, bad, restoring trust. But like that's exactly what this role is doing, is restoring trust and providing things that have been taken, utilizing my power within the institution to do so, which has been a really great experience because it allows me to meet more people within the community I'm a part of.
Now, you had a moment where leadership meant standing firm in controversy. So what did those experiences teach you about grace under fire?
I would say you can't appeal to everyone. Sometimes when you're in positions in which like you're at the center, you can't make everyone feel comfortable with your decisions, and that's okay. But you just have to make sure that whatever, in that moment I was in the controversial moment, whatever I'm doing aligns to my own values. And so no matter what other people think on my decision making, as long as it aligns with my values, I'm okay with it. And that's like really hard to get to that point, to understand that like there might be people who are against the decision making I'm doing, might be people who are supporting it, but understanding like this is what I believe in, and that's strong enough for me to continue it. And so like that's how I've been able to face these moments of controversy, from student protesting to impeaching someone, like multiple things throughout this past 2 years. But I truly believe like at your core, like you have to uphold your values you abide by, and those shouldn't be compromised by others.
Was there ever a time where you felt like, man, this is getting too much, or you needed a break and step away before you made a very crucial decision during that time where you're facing these challenges?
I would say last year spring we were getting ready to like impeach someone, and he did something really really bad that I did not agree with, and I was about to go to our school's newspaper and like expose him and like put him on the limelight. And before I made the decision, I went to my advisor and I'm like angry in her office, telling her what's going on. And once I was talking to her after I cooled off, I realized how emotional that choice would have been to put him in the limelight just because I was mad about the decision he was doing and way he's affecting the organization internally, and that was not the right way to go about it. And so when you have those moments of like you're emotionally charged, it really affects your decision making. So it's like really good to like take a step back, 24 hours, and then make the decision. Because what I've noticed when I make those decisions where I am emotionally charged, I normally regret them later on.
You know, being able to recognize those parts of decision making, of knowing when to make those decisions and when not to do something that you're going to regret later, and that's a very good. That's a leadership skill that you've already also recognized and have. Those are good qualities to have. Now, what's one myth about leadership you love to break?
That you're always busy 24/7. I think I'm at a point right now as a senior in which my friends sometimes stop inviting me to things because I think I'm so busy. And like there are moments where I'm saying like, no, I can't go, I have something to do. But there are moments where it's like I actually can. And I think some people think that since you have a large impact on the community or on the individual, that you're working 24/7 behind the scenes to create the impact. And sometimes the impact is greater than the work you put in the forefront. So like you can be a great leader and not be doing stuff 24/7, maybe only 5 hours, 6 hours a day, and still have the impact you want. And so I would help my friends know I'm not busy all the time. You can invite me to things. It's okay. I might have the time to actually do it.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to like at least text me what goes on, and I can choose and pick when I'm there. But I guess too, it's like they don't want to be let down. But dude, you guys could just text. It's fine, or just voice message, send it. So when the spotlight gets heavy, who do you lean on?
I think it's like changed over time. Like I would say always my mother. Like I always talk to her like almost every other day. So she's like definitely my go-to. But sometimes it's like my sisters, one of my fraternity brothers. I would say like I have a core of 5 people. By the end of the day, I'm always gonna call my mom when I'm sad, when something good happens. And she either is going to listen or tell me I'm crazy. But either way, like she would be the go person I would always call.
That's good. Now, I have to ask you, you mentioned earlier about how when you were in Palau, you mentioned about the Brotherhood and how they played a part in helping you as an example, right? So how do you help others rise when you're tired yourself?
That's a really good question. When I'm tired myself, how do I help others rise? I think there are like moments in which I feel like Elijah, just ignore it, you know, like focus on yourself. And so I think there's been moments in which I have to understand this is a moment when Elijah, you need to get up and help this person. But there are moments in which like helping another will negatively impact me because it's just so much to handle everything at once. And so I think it really just depends on the specific issue, and if I have the capacity to do so. So when I know I have the capacity to do something and I'm just lazy, I'm gonna go and help them. But if I don't have the capacity and I'm like really, really tired, then like sometimes I have to put myself first, because if I don't put myself first, then when will I ever put myself first? And that's like a hard line to draw at times, but when you're getting emails every day from students asking you for help, it's either you're going to push them to someone else to help them, or you're going to have to, or sometimes you just can't get to them in time.
But I feel like you're the type of person that go out of your way no matter what.
Yeah.
To be able to help someone. It's kind of just exactly when I was asking this question, you know, the first thing that came to my mind was the fact that, you know, you took the second term to run for president again, when you could have just smooth sail through your senior year.
Yeah, so I guess it depends. I think more than I should, I'm always trying to do things to help people. which gets exhausting. But I haven't burned out yet, so when the candle's a little bit less, then I might say no.
Well, Elijah, you're young and you still got a lot of fire in you, so take advantage. Go all out as much as you can, because when you get to my age, your knees gonna hurt. You're taking these oil type medicine to get you cranked up in the morning. Coffee is like your best friend, so just keep doing what you do. All right, so I'm gonna switch on to another segment, and so I want to ask you, what does your morning routine look like? You had mentioned earlier about how you have the words, ancestor on your mirror. And so what does your morning routine look like on a day you know will test you?
A day I know will test me. Well, yeah, right up, I wake up in the morning, see my phone with the quote for your ancestors. So I think that like charges me in the morning every day. In a day in which I know is going to test me, I really center myself on the fact that like the day is going to be over and it's not going to be happening for the rest of my life. And I think like once I shifted that mindset to like, okay, this is a moment, a period of time, and it's going to be done soon, it's been a lot easier to go through it's moments of uncomfortability or moments I didn't want to go, because now looking back, it's like so trivial, like that's so long ago. And I think when you have that mindset, come in a situation when you're going to like a job interview or something like really, really important, to know that like a week from now, this is all gonna be over, you're gonna be fine, and you just gotta keep chugging along. So when it's like a short period of time where I know it's gonna be bad, I just think of it more long term, in a contextualized capacity, which I feel like really helps me to continue on.
Being able to think about the long term and not just thinking about the now, what you said. And it's not long term. This is just a phase, and it'll pass. What's a failure that became your favorite teacher?
Failure, favorite teacher. I would say, okay, so I guess like I would say like I wouldn't consider a failure, but like one thing I always think about, that moment of time I thought was a failure, but when I was applying to colleges, like my dream school was like Harvard. I want to go to Harvard so bad. Like when you think of like becoming the first in your family to go to college, you have to go to the best of the best, and Harvard was number one. So I applied, got waitlisted, and I didn't get in. And at that moment, I thought like, wow, like you didn't prove your worth to your family, to your people. Like you should have been there. But like coming out of University of Chicago, I feel like I really understood that sometimes the moments that seem failures are really the best opportunities for you, because it's leading on a path that you just didn't expect. And coming to Chicago, I don't think I would have went on this journey of not only my Pacific Islander history and culture, but actually pursuing work in the Pacific, because it all like happened because I saw one book that a professor was working on that led me to the whole path I am now. Wow. And so now, looking back, it's like if I went to Harvard, I probably would have went to Guam and got funding to go there, bring my family. Probably never worked for the State Department, doing work in the Pacific, went to Palau. Like my sister, like I might not even went to the same school my sister. She might not even got to college. And so really, when you think about it like that, like these moments of failures, they seem like a bad thing in the moment. But often just that you just didn't really know the proper path for you in that moment, a period of time. So it appears that way. So, I think there's like a poem that says imposters of triumph and failures are imposters are two things the same, and I truly believe that, because the triumphs in these moments of failures sometimes are imposters. It's hard for you to determine what it is until later on in life.
I like that. So, Elijah, those who are going through these situations, what do you say to them?
I would say that sometimes in life you have to balance between security versus insecurity. Sometimes you have so much control of your life, you control every aspect, but sometimes in a period of life where you don't have control with it. And so what you can have control is what I like to tell like people who are trying to navigate careers or like school and like don't really know what opportunities are available or might not get things, is to like create a list of values, like your non-negotiables, everything you want in life. And so no matter which opportunity you're going for, if you fail and you go for another, or you go to school, you go to a different school, like if they match up with your values at its core, then you're still going the right path, just a different way. So I really believe like following your values at the forefront will navigate you to wherever you need to go. But just happens to be like you're just going a different route than you were expected.
You know, Elijah, I know that you faced a lot of criticism. At the same time, while you're going through your journey. And so when you're going through those criticism, how were you able to protect your peace?
Protect my peace. I think at some point I just tune everything out. I just don't really focus on that.
You feel like you've gotten so immune to it?
Yeah. I just gotten so used to it, that it's like it doesn't really mess with me anymore. If I need a power up moment, I'll listen to a song or something or read about myself, which is really bad. But I think, after a while when you're in these moments of spotlight, the criticism, it's just like the same thing, the same barrier. And plus, like when I was talking about like the whole ancestry thing, like me getting criticism from another college student really means nothing to what my ancestors faced for me to be here. And so when you compare those things, it's not even apples to oranges. It's like two different barriers of experiences, and really just understand like that really doesn't matter in the long scheme of things.
Yeah, especially where you've gone through this over and over. It's like, oh my gosh, what else do you need to throw at me? I mean, keep trying. It's not going to faze me. Yeah, and it goes back to what you said before too, where these are just a phase. These are gonna pass, and so it's not gonna be there forever. It's just one of those things. And I love what you just said too. Always comparing it to what your ancestors have gone through. It's nothing compared to what they've gone through, and so this is just a very minute problem that you can handle.
Exactly.
So that's good. So what motivates you? Fear of failure, vision of success, or service to others?
I would say a mixture between fear of failure and service for others, because I feel like they're directly intertwined. My goal is to be a service to others, but there's a deep fear that I will fail in doing so, and I think they work hand in hand in making me continue to do the work, because my goal is to impact my community and be of service for others, but I'm afraid that I'm going to fail, so I'm going to keep on trying to be better at it. But I would say at its core, like service for others is who I am, and truly like my compass in my approaching my life.
If success wasn't about titles or position, how would you define it?
Titles or positions, how would I define it? I think success for me right now is really about how successful I can train the next people. Because I said like earlier, like making impact is cool, but if you don't have people who can continue the work, it's not gonna mean anything. And I feel like in life, there's one person who told me that social justice or just like making impact in general is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's about ensuring that the next generation can continue on the marathon. And like thinking about the work on Guam, this work has been coming like a self-determination, and trying to protect our island has been happening from generation to generation to generation. Yeah. And I just happen to be the generation who has to continue on this work. And so making sure I can be able to pass it on to the next generation, because I've been inspired by past Chamorro leaders who've done work, and ensure that I can inspire the next generation. So I would say like that with what true leadership means is like, how can you make the next leader fill your role?
And it's speaking about going back to Guam and the things that you want to be able to help as a leader, being a leader at a president in your college. How do you feel like you'll be able to, if you're in a situation where you have the power to make changes, what are just the basic things that you'll be able to you could just tell me one that you want to start off and make a change for Guam?
I would say right off the back, I would want the Guam's government to have more of a role in the decision making from the DoD, because right now, like anything the DoD says is going to happen. Guam has no authority to say no, and I believe that really
sorry. For those who don't know, DoD is Department of Defense.
Yes, the Department of Defense. And so right now, the Guam's government doesn't have any leverage to negotiate anything, and there's about to be an expansion of military personnel on the island. So what is the leverage for the Guam's government to get more funding for other services on the island? Like, these are questions at its core that can't be answered because it's a territory. So I feel like that would be like the issue I want to focus on. But like, how do you get there? That's the process of like self-determination, which Guam has not had the opportunity to do so. And so I would hope, there's been like a lot of work right now on the island to hopefully one day have a plebiscite and let the island vote on what it wants its status to be. And it'd be really cool to be able to have that be able to come into fruition. But there's like a lot of work that needs to be done there. One on like making sure everyone's educated on like what does a different status mean for the island and how would that impact you. But also like who gets to vote, because the Supreme Court case, I believe it's 2017, now makes it, if a plebiscite would happen on the island, anyone can vote. So it's not just indigenous Chamorros who are shaping the future of the island itself. It's every other resident on the island who have different stakes there, which is something to like think about. So like if anything, like that's like something I would want to be able to work on fixing, is understand like how can we get to the path of having a plebiscite vote for the island, for they can have the voice and speak up. Because like once again, like I'm not Guamanian, like I have all these wishes for the island, but I want to be the one voting, you know, be my family voting, be the other people voting. So like my work from back home is like, how can I protect my community there? How can I make sure that we're educated there? How can I make sure that they have all the tools they have, so when the time comes, they can make a vote and decision that's reflective of their wants on a full educated level.
Now, how does being a Pacific Islander at the top U.S. university influence your vision for representation?
I think it's like really, really powerful, because now when like the university quotes me on things, like I was in Palau this summer, they create an article on me and they say, Elijah, the Chamorro, or the student body president who's also Chamorro, and putting that language into like the history of the university is really amazing. But also like professors, so like my professor, one of my close professors, he's Filipino, and he's one like telling people like, Elijah, you realize you're probably the first Pacific Islander student body president, and but definitely the very first Chamorro president. And like that's like really cool to think like, wow, I'm making that history, but it's also like pretty crazy that it's happening in 2025. So it's like a really humbling knowing that I am a representation for my Pacific Islander community here. I wish there was more of us, because there's not really anyone at the University of Chicago. But it has been like something powerful when I go to like academic forums and such, when I tell them that I'm the president of the University of Chicago, and they recognize the name, they recognize the role. And when I tell them I'm a Pacific Islander, there's a weight of authority given to what I'm trying to say. And that's really why I ran, because I wanted to make us more visible. And it's been truly really effective in doing so.
And you know what? This is the beauty about having you on our podcast, and that's another reason why I wanted you to share your journey, is so that all of our Pacific Islander youth and the young generation that's coming up, that they can see that, hey, if he can do this, I can do this too, and so that they don't shy away from opportunity that's out there. It's at hand's reach, and a lot of them don't want to take up that challenge. I think a lot of them, you know, like for me, for example, I had a hard time adapting with the universities when I left Samoa to come to America for college. And so when you have a lot of our Pacific Islanders, mostly, not all, but majority of them are into sports, we tend to push aside the academic part.
Yeah.
And so being able to see you on this platform and utilizing utilizing your background and representing us, that says a lot, and it really does put us on the map, so to say. I don't know if that's the right way to say, but that pretty much puts us Pacific Islander up there to represent us and make us known. Again, I had mentioned this to you earlier. I am so proud of you. I am very, very, very proud of you. Your mom and dad did a very good job at raising you. Even your nana, you mentioned your nana, being able to build the man that you are today, and the surroundings that you have, the people that you choose around you to help you on your journey, because I know on this life that we're living, we cannot do it alone without all the different help around us, people and love that keeps us going. Now, I know that time is of the essence, and just like my kids, Mom, I gotta go, I have things to study. I'm gonna jump real quick to our rapid fire questions before we close. What's one quote you live by?
This is a new quote that I found last year when I was taking my class on Hawaiian sovereignty. But it's a quote from Fijian Apeli Hau'ofa, and it's this quote of, "We should not be defined by the smallest of our islands, but in the greatness of our oceans. We are the sea, we are the ocean. Oceania is in us." And I believe that's like such a powerful quote he says, because one, it like shows that no matter the island, how small we are, no matter how far we are, like we are able to make an impact. Our voices matter. But it's also like really important for those in the diaspora who are not on their islands to realize that like you might not be on your island, but the island's inside you, the ocean's inside you, and the water, our water touches all around this earth. So no matter where you are connected in some form of capacity, through your tears, through the water you drink. Like that ocean is coming from that same space, and I believe that quote like really just puts that in the forefront, and it's really beautiful to me.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to save that. I'm also going to do the same thing you did with having your ancestor quote on your mural, because I need that motivation as well.
Exactly.
So, a song that motivates you.
A song. I think this counts as a song, but Guam's Inefresi, which is like our Pledge of Allegiance, is like a specific recording on YouTube from, I believe, from the Guam Micronesian Island Fair in like 2021. And it's like a young Chamorita girl singing it, and it's like so beautiful because it's in Chamorro language, and like the words in Chamorro are all about protecting the land, protecting the culture, protecting our land, our air, our water, protecting our community. And when I play that on YouTube, I get like so inspired to like just conquer the day. And so it's like really powerful to hear that and hear my language in my ears, no matter where I'm at. So it's like that's a song that motivates me.
I love that. And then being able to have the pride, right? You know.
Exactly.
So that's beautiful. A Pacific Islander who inspires you. Please don't tell me The Rock.
I would say Julian Agan. I mentioned him earlier, but he's a Chamorro lawyer, and he's actually the lawyer, if you guys haven't learned, but the Vanuatu had a case in the ICJ on like climate change. It was led by a group of students, Vanuatu Pacific Islander students from the college, from the law school, and he was like the head lawyer helping that case. And so he was in the ICJ arguing against it, and now there's a decision from the ICJ that says human rights issues a climate issue, and these should be important, and all nations should be looking at that. And to see a Pacific Islander from my island like speaking up in a world forum like that, like that's who I want to be. And I had a great opportunity to like take a picture with him when I was on the island this summer, and like fangirled for a moment. But definitely Julian Agan. So like Suzu Sumasi for all the work he's been doing, and he continues to inspire me.
What do people get wrong about you?
That I don't have fun.
Other than the 24/7.
Other than the 24/7, I think people think I don't have fun because I guess that coincides. But people take me really seriously because I'm like always doing serious things. But there is like a fun side of me. It's like I think people don't see that right off the back. They just take me as like a very serious person. And until they get to know me, they realize like I'm actually not serious whatsoever. So it's like that's what people get me wrong all the time.
Like, come on, you guys, just come and talk to me. That's all it takes. Don't just shy away. I'm sure you're a celebrity to all of them. Okay, what's one word that defines your 2025 mindset?
Yeah. Okay, so that's this past year. I'll say this mindset for this year was go back to another Chamorro word, but mahalang, which means like to miss particularly like your community, miss the island. And so I feel like this past year was like the experience of mahalang until I went back to island, and now I have it again because I miss it. And so it's like a constantly missing my island, missing my community, but in that missing there's something really great in that, and it's really great to be able to miss something you love so much. So my word would be mahalang. Mahalangzu.
Well, Elijah, it was very fun having you on the podcast. And I want to ask one more question before we leave. What does the future looks like for Elijah? What are your plans even after you're done with your undergraduate? I'm sure you're going to get into law school, right?
So law school, probably like being abroad for this past summer really showed me like I don't want to be in America right now. I really want to experience the world. So I'm applying to programs internationally, so like China, UK, Australia. Like I really want to continue doing work in the Pacific, so hopefully I land somewhere there over the next year, and I'm working there and be able to go home to Guam more often. But like that's my mindset for the next year or two. And so, Suzuki Masi, thank you for having me on. I like really appreciate this opportunity to speak about my journey and speak about the importance of Pacific Islands journey, because we do deserve to be in the limelight. We do deserve to have our voices shared. And so the work that Post Polynesian is doing is truly impactful. It truly is wonderful. Suzuki Masi on everything that you're doing. And thank you for all the people who are actually listening to this podcast as well.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Elijah, especially being able to take the time to come on the podcast. And this is why we have this platform. It's not just for Polynesia, it's for our Pacifica Islanders being able to share, because we are all brothers and sisters. And so we're so grateful to have you. Yeah, and being able to have you on to represent our people and share your story so that others can look and be like, wow, this is exactly what I need. And so that, you know, they can see that this is something that they could do as well. And so again, Elijah, I cannot say this enough. I'm so proud of you. We're all so proud of you. Tell your mom and dad, you guys did a wonderful job. You guys are such a blessing to be able to have this wonderful soul on this earth to bless us all with his talent and his just being able to be of service to our people. And so, Elijah, you are a blessing, and thank you for all you do. Thank you for being on this podcast again. Congratulations for next year. You're going to graduate. And so we look forward to the future, and God bless. If there's anything that we could do, you have my information. Please let us know, and we'll be following up with your future and on all your endeavors, and keep us posted. And if there's anything that we could do to help you, let us know, Elijah.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night and good luck on everything. Take care.